Hey, and welcome to my Illustrator workshop for summer 2022. This is going to be the Toucan Tropics promo package that we're going to create, starting with creating a toucan from scratch. So before you get started, there's two files if you're going to work through the whole session with me to download. There's a link right here on the cover page, which will take you to a Google Drive that has two files to download. One is a color swatch, and one is a PNG of some palm trees. So do be sure to right click and download those each to a folder. So make you a folder for this workshop. So I'll say workshop Adobe Illustrator, and I'll pop that in there and then download the other one as well. And be sure that you have those available for the workshop as they are needed. And then we're going to open up Adobe Illustrator. So you'll open up Illustrator. For this session, I will be using Adobe Illustrator 2021. That's the one that we installed last summer in my lab. So we just kind of keep them for about a year, and we have not done a new update yet for the coming year. But when you get into Illustrator, what you should see is this splash screen. And if you have recent documents, they'll appear down here at the bottom. I do encourage my students not to use the recent documents though, and rather to go to the open if they have a file that's already been created, and then browse to the drive, just because sometimes it loses connection to those and then the students think the files are gone forever. So we definitely want to make sure that we are always opening rather than clicking the icons. We are going to create a new document. So when you come in here, you're going to click on New Document. And a new document is going to have this box that pops up with presets that you can choose from. There's a whole bunch of presets across the top. We are just going to create a new document that is from scratch. So we're not going to use any of the presets. We're just going to come over here and type in what we want. Now, if you're already clicked on something, you can still come over here and type in whatever it is that you want. So we're going to choose one artboard. So where it says artboards, set it to 1. We are going to set ours up in pixels. And very important in Illustrator is choose your measurement before you type in the numbers. So we're going to make an 800 by 800 pixel document. So for width 800 and then for height 800 as well, so that we have a square. Okay. And then artboards 1, color mode CMYK, which is typically what you use for print. And then go ahead and press create. And that's going to give us a document that is just a square. You should have a nice little square document in Illustrator. Now let's take a look at this. I'm going to make this so that my screen all fits. And I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, and Reset Essentials Classic. So the workspace we're going to use for this, and the workspace is just the arrangement of all of these panels on the screen, is going to be the Essentials Classic. And to get to that, you go to Window and then Workspace. So make sure that you have Essentials Classic checked, not Essentials. So Essentials is missing a lot of things. So Essentials Classic is the old one, and it just seems to work a little better. And if you've used the machine before, you'll want to go down to Reset Essentials Classic just to redock all of the panels. Okay? So we've got that in there now, and we're going to create artboards. So I told you when we created it that we had just one artboard, and an artboard is just basically the workspace that you're going to use to design on, like your piece of paper. But you can create an Illustrator file that has multiple artboards, and since we're going to be creating a whole promo package, to me, it's nice to have them all in one big document. So we're going to have each of them on their own artboards. Now, artboards have their own little panel. So we're going to go to Window and Artboards, and you will see the Artboard panel pop up. And we have one artboard that's 800 by 800 pixels. Let's go ahead and name that. We'll just double click it. We're going to name that Toucan, because that's the one we're going to create our toucan on. And then let's go ahead and add 3 more artboards. So there's a plus sign here, the new artboard, and we're just going to click it a couple of times so that we have 4 artboards. For the second artboard, we're going to change the size. So what you can do with that artboard is you can double click on your artboard to rename it. We're going to name this one Shirt, and then double click on the icon over here, and you can, for the shirt one, set your size. And we're going to make that 800 by 400 for the shirt and hit OK. So it'll go that direction. And then we'll come to Artboard 3, double click it, rename this one Logo. Okay, and then let's come and click over here. And the logo is going to be 500 by 500. Okay, and then Artboard 4 is going to be a soda can. And it's also going to be 500 by 500. So we're going to get this all set up just to start to make everything very simple for working later on. So we've got Toucan, and if you double click those, it'll take you to shirt, logo, and soda can. All right, so we've got all of our artboards that are there. Now, one thing that's nice to do is to rearrange the artboards just so that you can see them a little bit better. I like to do that. So whenever you click on the button down here in the bottom left-hand corner, rearrange all artboards. If you click on that, then you can tell it that you want it set up a certain way. So I could set it up in 2 columns, for instance, and then we can see all 4 of those artboards. So when we're zoomed out, they'll show that way. So that's the rearrange all artboards button. And then again, we can just double click up on the one that we want to work on it. The last thing we're going to do on this first page, getting started, is we're going to set up some grids and guides. So I'm going to hit this little button to get that panel out of the way. There's a lot of buttons over here in the Properties panel. In Illustrator, we have a Properties panel at the right. That Properties panel has lots of things that are specific to the document itself, not a specific object because we're not clicked on anything. So some of those things that we want to look at are under Ruler and Grids. We have different options. Notice here there's a button that looks like a ruler that puts a ruler bar up here so you can see how many pixels across things are. There's one here that shows the grid. Some people like the grid, some people don't. If you're trying to draw shapes, the grid is helpful in making your lines exactly the size that you want. And then this last little button is the transparency grid. Technically, we see white as a background, but there is no background in Illustrator. So it's not like Photoshop where you open it and there's automatically a background. So that confuses people if they're using white. So that's how you can show or hide the transparency grid. And then below that, we have guides. We like to have our guides. That's what shows little lines when you have things that are snapping next to each other. There's also a lock for the guides and then a Smart Guides button. We want to have our Smart Guides on, and then we want to have the other guides on as well. And then finally, we have snap options. I have snap to point on, but you could have snap to grid on if you were trying to draw within grid lines, or even snap to pixels. I'm going to go with just that first one checked on. And then finally, when I'm creating documents, I like to check mark scale, strokes, and effects. So go ahead and give that a click. Okay, so this is just going to be your main setup. On the left-hand side, we're going to see our toolbar, our toolbox. At the top, you have a menu bar with drop-downs. Below that, you have an options bar, which changes based on the tool you're using or what you are clicked on in that moment. And then at the right-hand side, this Properties panel. I really like the Properties panel. It has shortcuts for lots of things, including quick actions over here, which sometimes are helpful as well. Okay, so this gives you your basic setup. We're going to go ahead and save this document and File, Save As, and save to your computer or wherever you wish to put it. We want to definitely put it in your folder that you've got those pictures in. So I've got my workshop folder, and I'm just going to call it Toucan and hit save. And okay. And then we will be ready to pick up on setting up the colors for the project.